There's a photo of me from about 6 years ago. I'm standing in a parking lot outside a job I didn't love, wearing a jacket I bought because it was on clearance. And if you looked at me that day, you wouldn't have guessed anything interesting was happening in my life. But something was. Quietly, in an account I barely looked at, a number was growing. Not fast, not dramatically, but consistently. And the person parked next to me, the one with the nicer car, the better shoes, the watch that probably cost more than my rent, that person was 3 missed paychecks away from a financial emergency. I know that because he told me one night after work, over a cheap beer. He said, "Finn, I don't know how I'm going to make it to the end of the month." And I just sat there thinking, we aren't almost the same. How are we living in two completely different realities? That question stuck with me. And it's the reason I started studying this stuff. Not investing theory, not stock charts, but the actual psychology behind how money moves through people's lives, and why most of us feel like we're drowning no matter how much we earn. Because here's the thing nobody really talks about. The difference between people who build wealth and people who don't almost never comes down to income. It comes down to structure, to behavior, to the invisible architecture of how you treat every dollar before it even hits your account. So today, I want to walk you through something I've been using for years. It's a framework, not a hack, not a trick, not some guru nonsense. Just a way of splitting your income that, over time, changes everything. I call it the 25-15-50-10 rule. And it works whether you're earning $30,000 a year or $300,000, because the math scales. But more importantly, the mindset scales. Before we get into it, though, I think we need to talk about something uncomfortable first. There's a stat that floats around the internet, and it goes something like this. The wealthiest people in the world are roughly 75% entrepreneurs, about 15% investors, a small percentage inherited their wealth, and an even smaller slice are athletes, entertainers, or artists. You know what's missing from that list? Salaried employees. People who only earn a paycheck. That's not meant to make you feel bad, it's meant to make you curious. Because what do all those categories have in common? Ownership. Entrepreneurs own businesses. Investors own assets. Trust fund kids own, well, trusts. And the entertainers and athletes, they own rare, irreplaceable skills. The uncomfortable realization is this. If you don't own something, whether it's a skill, an asset, a business, or even just a growing investment account, then you are the thing being used. Your time, your energy, your labor. It gets consumed, and at the end of the month, there's nothing left to show for it, except the fact that your bills are paid. And even that's not guaranteed. Now, I'm not saying quit your job tomorrow. That would be reckless. What I am saying is that within your current life, within whatever income you already have, there is room to start building ownership. And the way you do that is by giving every portion of your income a job before you ever get the chance to spend it emotionally. That's where the 25-15-50-10 rule comes in. Let's start with the first 25%. This is your growth money. This is the portion of your income that you never touch for daily life. It doesn't go to rent. It doesn't go to groceries. It doesn't go to that thing you saw online at 2 in the morning and convinced yourself you needed. This money has one job: to grow, to buy things that become more valuable over time, to work while you sleep. Most people, when they get paid, they cover their bills, maybe put a little aside if they remember, and then whatever's left gets absorbed into the fog of daily spending. A coffee here, a subscription there, a random purchase they won't remember in 2 weeks. And by the end of the month, there's nothing left to invest. Not because they couldn't afford to, but because they didn't build the structure to protect it. I want you to think about this for a second. The system we live in is designed to keep you spending. Ads are everywhere. One-click purchases, buy now, pay later schemes. Everything is engineered to separate you from your money as quickly and painlessly as possible. And when the money's gone, the only option is to show up again next month and trade more of your time for more of it. It's a loop. And unless you deliberately break it, it never ends. So, the 25% goes straight into assets. Index funds, real estate, skill development that increases your earning power. Things that compound over time. Let me tell you a quick story to show you why starting early matters more than starting big. Imagine two people. One starts putting away $200 a month at age 20. The other waits until 30 and puts away $300 a month to try to catch up. By the time they're both 60, the person who started earlier, who actually invested less money in total, ends up with nearly double the wealth. Not because they were smarter, not because they picked better stocks, but because compound growth rewards time more than it rewards size. 10 extra years of growth did more than 10 extra years of saving ever could. That's why I don't care if you can only invest $50 a month right now. Start. Because waiting is the most expensive decision you'll ever make. And you won't feel the cost until it's too late to fix it. Now, what should you actually invest in? If you're just getting started, keep it boring. Index funds. Something that tracks a broad market like the S&P 500. You're not trying to pick the next big winner. You're trying to own a small piece of hundreds of companies at once and let time do the heavy lifting. As you grow more confident, you can explore international funds, bonds for stability, maybe even individual stocks if you're willing to do the homework. But the foundation should always be simple, diversified, and automatic. And here's the part most people overlook. Set up a tax-advantaged account. Depending on where you live, there are accounts specifically designed to let your money grow without being eaten alive by taxes. In the US, that might be a Roth IRA or a 401k. In the UK, a stocks and shares ISA. Other countries have their own versions. The point is, if you're investing through a regular account and paying full tax on your gains, you're leaving money on the table for no reason. Once the account is open and funded, automate it. Set up a monthly transfer on payday. Don't look at it every day. Don't panic when the market dips. Just let it run. The people who build real wealth aren't the ones glued to stock tickers. They're the ones who set it and then focus on earning more so they can invest more. Now, the next 15%, this is your stability money. And honestly, this is the part most people skip, which is exactly why one bad month can unravel years of progress. I learned this the hard way. When I was younger, I needed a car to get to work. Didn't have savings, so I took out a loan, bought the car, felt great about it for a few months. Then the engine failed. No backup plan, no emergency fund, no cushion. And suddenly, I wasn't just dealing with a broken car, I was dealing with the threat of losing my job, piling on more debt, and watching whatever tiny financial progress I'd made completely disappear. One mechanical failure. That's all it took to set me back an entire year. And this is what happens to most people. Not because they're irresponsible, but because nobody taught them to build a buffer. Life doesn't send you a warning before it gets expensive. It just hits. And if you've got nothing set aside, you're forced to sell investments at a loss, take on debt, or make desperate decisions that cost you way more in the long run. So, the 15% goes into a stability fund. Here's how I think about it. Take your core monthly expenses, the real ones, rent, groceries, utilities, transport, the things you genuinely cannot live without, and multiply that number by 5. That's your target. 5 months of breathing room. 5 months where, if everything went sideways, you could keep your life running without panic. Now, where you keep this money matters just as much as having it. 3 rules. It has to be easy to access because emergencies don't wait for bank processing times. It has to be zero risk, meaning not in the stock market, not in crypto, not in anything that can lose value right when you need it most. And it should still earn something, because leaving cash in a zero-interest account means inflation slowly eats it away. A high-yield savings account handles all 3. It's liquid, it's safe, and it earns a little while it sits there. Build this fund the same way you build your investments. Automate 15% of your income into it on payday. If you ever have to dip into it, replace what you took as soon as possible. Treat it like oxygen. You don't think about oxygen until it's gone, and by then, it's the only thing you can think about. Once your stability fund is fully stocked, you can redirect that 15% into growth or into the final category we'll talk about soon. But until it's full, it's non-negotiable. Now, 50%. This is for essentials. And this is where most people quietly lose the game without even realizing it. Here's a number that should bother you. Over 60% of Americans earning more than $100,000 a year still live paycheck to paycheck. $100,000. That's not a low income. That's a great salary in most parts of the country. And yet, the majority of people earning it still feel broke by the end of the month. Why? Because their essentials expanded to match their income. Bigger apartment, nicer car, more subscriptions, better restaurants. And slowly, without anyone noticing, the lifestyle inflated until there was nothing left. This is what they call lifestyle creep. And it's one of the most dangerous financial patterns that exists because it doesn't feel dangerous. It feels earned. You got a raise, so you deserve a nicer place. You got a bonus, so you treat yourself to a better car. Each upgrade feels small and reasonable in the moment, but stacked together, they quietly consume everything. I had a friend years ago who looked like he had it all figured out. Designer clothes, designer watch, always picking up the tab. And I was standing next to him in a baggy shirt and a cheap watch, looking like I hadn't figured out anything. But behind the scenes, he had less than $50 in his account and a pile of overdue credit card payments. Meanwhile, I had a growing investment account and a stability fund that could carry me for months. Nobody could see that, though, because wealth isn't what you wear, it's what you don't spend. So, how do you keep your essentials at 50%? First, be brutally honest about what's actually essential. Rent is essential. Groceries are essential. Utilities, transport, basic clothing, those are essential. The streaming services you forgot you're paying for? Not essential. The takeout 3 nights a week? Not essential. The gym membership you haven't used since January? Definitely not essential. Go through your bank statements. Cancel what you're not using. You'll be surprised how much is leaking out every month on things that add zero value to your life. Second, focus on the 2 biggest categories, housing and transport. These are where the real money lives. If you can keep your housing costs reasonable, resist the urge to upgrade every time your income goes up, maybe negotiate your rent, consider a roommate, or stay in a modest place a little longer. That single decision can save you tens of thousands over the years. Same with transport. Buying a reliable used car instead of leasing something flashy eliminates one of the biggest wealth killers most people carry. And third, stop relying on willpower. Willpower is a limited resource. When you're tired, stressed, or bored, it vanishes. That's why the people who manage money well don't rely on discipline in the moment. They build systems that make the right choice automatic. Before I buy anything that isn't clearly essential, I ask myself a simple question. Is this an impulse? If I've been thinking about it for a while and it fits within my essentials, fine. But if it just popped into my head today, I wait 7 days. And most of the time, after 7 days, I've completely forgotten about it. The urgency was fake. The need was manufactured. And my money stayed exactly where it belonged. And then there's the final 10%. This is the part that keeps the whole thing from falling apart emotionally. Because here's what nobody tells you about saving and investing and being disciplined with money. If you never let yourself enjoy any of it, you will eventually snap. I've seen it happen. Someone goes hard for 6 months, cuts every expense, invests aggressively, builds their stability fund, and then one random Tuesday, they blow $500 on something they don't even want. Not because they needed it, but because the pressure of constant restriction became unbearable. Studies actually back this up. The vast majority of people who go through intense saving periods end up overspending right after, because saving without any joy starts to feel like punishment. And humans don't sustain punishment. We rebel against it. That's why the 10% exists. Not as a weakness, as a strategy. It's the release valve that keeps the whole system sustainable. I'd recommend opening a separate account for this. Call it whatever you want. Your joy fund, your sanity account, whatever makes you smile when you see it. Set up an automatic transfer of 10% of your income into it every month, and then spend it on whatever makes your life feel worth living. But here's the only rule. When it's gone, it's gone. You don't borrow from your growth. You don't raid your stability fund. You wait until next month. That constraint is what makes you intentional about how you use it. And if I can offer one piece of advice about how to spend this money, prioritize experiences over things. I spent years ignoring vacations, skipping dinners with friends, turning down invitations because I was too focused on building. And you know what happened? I burned out. I got sick. I lost friendships. I looked up one day and realized I had a growing bank account and a shrinking life. That was a wake-up call I'll never forget. Now, my 10% goes to trips with people I love, a weekend away, a good meal with old friends, an afternoon doing something that has absolutely nothing to do with money or productivity. Those are the moments that remind me why any of this matters in the first place. Because money was never the goal. Freedom was. And freedom means nothing if you never actually use it. So that's the framework. 25% toward growth, so your money works while you do. 15% toward stability, so one bad month doesn't erase everything. 50% toward essentials, kept honest and lean. And 10% toward joy, because you're a human being, not a savings algorithm. I want to be honest with you about something. This isn't going to feel easy at first. There will be months where you look at that 25% going into investments and wish you could use it for something more immediate. There will be moments where your friends are upgrading their lives and you're sitting still, wondering if you're doing the right thing. And there will be times when the progress feels painfully slow. But here's what I've learned, and it took me years to really believe it. The people who build lasting wealth aren't the ones who make the most dramatic moves. They're the ones who make quiet, consistent, boring decisions over and over again until the math starts working in their favor. And one day, without any fireworks or celebration, they look at their account and realize they've crossed a line they never thought they'd reach. You don't need to be perfect with this. You just need to be consistent. Some months you'll nail it, some months you won't. That's fine. The structure is what catches you when motivation doesn't. And if nothing else, just remember this. The fact that you're even thinking about this stuff puts you ahead of most people. Not because you're smarter, but because you're paying attention. And in a world designed to keep you distracted and spending, paying attention is the most powerful financial decision you can make. I'm Finn. This is FinSense, and I'll see you in the next one.